Good afternoon. I'm Robin Kaler, Associate Chancellor for Public Affairs at Illinois. Welcome to the 8th in our COVID briefing series. Today is a special edition. We're really excited to talk to you a little bit about students and parents and what they need to know to come back to campus for the fall 2020 semester. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of guests today. We have Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Provost Andreas Kangelaris, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs Danita Brown-Young, Graduate College Dean Wojtek Hajko-Zajko, Associate Director of International Student and Scholar Services, Stephanie Dvorchak, Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Success and Engagement, Jim Hintz, and of course, Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education, Kevin Pitts. Our format today will be just opening comments by Andreas Kangelaris, and then we'll go right to questions because we have a lot of questions today. So Andreas, would you like to offer some opening thoughts for us?
Thank you, Robin. And thank you everyone for joining us for this, the students, the parents, and of course, my colleagues. I would like to thank Danita, Stephanie, Jim, Kevin, Wojtek for contributing to this conversation today. What a summer this has been. It is true that we are just so close to the beginning of the semester, and like all the parents and the students, I can tell you, me and my wife, as we're getting ready to see our youngest go to college in another state, are spending so much time checking with the university, finding all the details about what they're planning to do. I will tell you, I have never found myself in the most awkward position to try to contain my wife's continuous guidance of my son, how to wear his mask, to not go to parties. I'm pretty much overwhelmed by the attention that my wife is now paying on all of those things that we know all of us make all the difference. And I'm impressed with my son saying, Mom, if you repeat that once more, I'm not going to talk to you again. But it is so important. We all know it has been a very busy, a very different summer for all of us. And as we know very well, there is nothing remotely normal or certain about this summer. But here we are, we're about to start the semester again. And as we try to navigate the uncertainties of the pandemic, our priority is to ensure that everyone has the educational experience we promise at the University of Illinois, and that everyone has the opportunity to participate in whatever manner you believe is best and safest for you and your family. For those of you who choose to participate remotely, your instructors have been working diligently throughout the summer to prepare and fine-tune their material for online teaching. More than 1,500 of them to date have participated in the Academy for Online Teaching we established to provide training, best practices, and consultation on online teaching material preparation and delivery, and how to engage the students and make sure their participation is as rewarding as possible. For those of you who choose to be here on campus in the Urbana-Champaign community this fall, we have a whole series of new required actions and recommended practices that we will ask you to follow. This is the purpose of this meeting, to provide you with some guidance early on about those things. But also, I want you to know that we are very careful as we plan everything to be in compliance with the guidance provided to us by the State of Illinois Department of Public Health. And we work diligently and very closely with our Champaign Public Health District, the mayor's offices, and our local health providers as we plan ahead. The chance to come back together, even in a modified way, is very exciting for me personally, invigorating, and based on the feedback from many of you students who have reached out to us, it is important to you as well. But to remain together throughout the semester will require sustained, constant, and collective commitment for every single one of us who comes here to campus. The COVID-19 pandemic, the uncertainty associated with it, and all the family, work, and financial challenges and hardships caused by it have brought significant mental and emotional stress for all of us, and inflicted dramatically disproportionate hurt on some of the most vulnerable among us. Here in our community, we will find the strength to help us come through and build a community that cares for each other, a community that looks after everyone's well-being. We know we do not have all the answers, This is a new virus we don't understand fully yet. And this, together with the resurgence of infections in multiple states in our country and elsewhere, adds to the stress and concerns that each and every one of us experiences. We all hope for a medical solution, a vaccine that will end the threat of this virus as soon as possible. But we must acknowledge the hard fact that such a resolution is still months in coming. And until then, our surest and most trusted protectors must be each other. Today, we're going to give our students and our families a much better and more detailed overview of everything that we are putting in place, along with face covering, social distancing, and hand washing, to help each one of us to do our part as we try to look after one another in dealing with the challenges of this pandemic. Robin, back to you.
Thank you, Andreas. And we do have a very long list of questions, as I said earlier. So I will remind those of you watching, if you can't stay for the entire conversation, and I hope you can, we will archive this on covid19.illinois.edu. We'll have all the questions and the answers logged with the exact time they happen in the recording, so you can go right to them. But again, I hope you can stay with us because we have a lot of good information. So let's go ahead and get started. Andreas, the biggest question out there, of course, is why are we allowing students to come back at all during a pandemic?
That's a big question, Robin, and as you know very well, it's a question that we have been discussing for a long time, and we are dealing with it on a daily basis as we plan ahead. But I will tell you, there are several reasons why we're doing that. And of course, you know, the most important thing to keep in mind is whether we're going to be able to do that or not depends on what the Illinois Department of Public Health will allow us to do at the end of the day. But given the guidance we have so far, I will tell you that I feel good about the opportunity to be able to have students back to campus. 1 in 3 students on this campus come from a family whose income is less than $67,000 a year. And we know, based on our experience from last semester, that these students have had a very hard time with remote instruction. They don't necessarily have the support structure or access to technology remotely that they will have on campus. Bringing those students back to campus greatly increases their chances to persist and finish their degree. And also, I want to say that based on a survey of students returning to campus, we asked, what are you most looking forward to about coming back to campus? And the number one answer was having a better learning environment and better support structure, which rated above seeing my friends, which everybody we know knows that is an important element that students want to. And another thing I want to say is because of the community we are, students are coming back to the community no matter what. Even for classes that are going to be 100% online, I would say that up to 3/4 of our students will come to campus anyway. So we feel strongly about, given how important the community participation is in what we do, to make sure that we have mandatory testing with in-person instruction for all of them. What we are doing is arguably safer than going fully online. If we're able to do that, I think everybody will benefit from that. The last thing I want to say is, I talked about uncertainty earlier, and the duration of the pandemic is very uncertain. There is time before a vaccine is available to us, and once it's going to be available, how we will be able to use it, when it will become available to everybody remains to be seen. And we need to make sure that we navigate our way through this pandemic in a way that the learning experience of the students is as robust as possible. And this is why we're doing our best, together with all the guidance provided to us by the Champaign Urbana Public Health District and our healthcare providers, to make sure that we empower everybody with the means in which they can look after one another and look after the well-being of the community.
Great, thank you, Andreas. And we talked about what things we needed to cover today in this. We came up with sort of 5 things that students really should know and think about before they come back. And I'd like to walk through those quickly with you. We'll start off with face coverings and social distancing. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Absolutely, face covering and social distancing. I have memorized this from the many times that my wife has been telling that to my son. We will continue to require everyone to practice social distancing on campus and to wear face coverings in university facilities unless they are alone in a private space. Face coverings are also required for outside campus spaces where sufficient social distancing may not be possible. If you have a medical condition or disability that prevents you from safely wearing a cloth face covering, you will not be required to wear one, and alternative arrangements will be provided. When it comes to thinking about the most fundamental elements that we all know are going to work the best, face covering, social distancing, hand washing are key.
Great, thank you. And obviously, a thing that was big news this week, testing will be required. Can you talk a little bit about testing?
Most definitely. We will require on-campus testing for all faculty, staff, or students who have a need to be on campus for any reason or any length of time. Mandatory, twice weekly testing will be required for students who participate in any on-campus activities starting August 16th. Students visiting the campus only occasionally will be required to go to a testing center, get tested, and have test results dated no more than 4 days prior to entering any university facility. On-campus activities include attending workplaces and classrooms, but also any on-campus services such as living in residence halls, going to the dining hall, utilizing the ARC or the libraries, or any other activity taking place within the campus boundaries. All of those are on-campus activities that people need to be tested for in order to have access to them. We are also encouraging everyone who lives with individuals partaking in these activities, for example, roommates or spouses, to be tested twice per week as well. We will require students to get tested as soon as they arrive on campus. For university housing, students will be tested as part of the check-in process. Testing off campus will not alleviate their requirement to test on campus. If students test positive elsewhere, they will need to share those test results with McKinley.
And Andres, students don't have to memorize all that from what you just said. We do have training available that they're going to be required to take. Can you talk about that quickly?
Oh, absolutely. And training, COVID-19 training is required of all faculty, staff, and students, regardless of whether they're participating in on-campus activities or are 100% remote. We ask everyone to complete the Division of Research Safety COVID-19 online training, and this must be completed before Monday, August 24th, the first day of instruction.
Great. And I know it's always important for students to keep their phones handy so that we parents can reach them, and their iCards, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about why it's extra important this semester to have those?
Oh, yes, the iCard, that's for sure. For twice weekly required testing, the students and all of us will need our iCard to swipe in. And the student must provide proof of compliance with testing requirements prior to entering a classroom or other buildings, as we said. And students will not be allowed to enter university classrooms or buildings if they are not wearing face covering, of course. They have tested positive for COVID-19, if they have missed a mandatory test, or if they are currently awaiting a test result after notification of exposure. And that's where the smartphone becomes handy, because we have developed a Safer in Illinois app that is going to be providing everyone the opportunity to display their individual's building entry status very easily. And for those who are not using a smartphone or the Safer in Illinois app, we're going to provide alternative methods for them to indicate their compliance.
And for students who don't have access to a smartphone, we're working on that as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so the fifth important thing to remember is that there will be quarantining and contact tracing this semester. So can you talk a bit about that?
Of course, and I think this is a familiar language for everyone. It has been discussed in the news quite a lot, but let me elaborate on this a little bit. All faculty, staff, or students who test positive for COVID-19 are required to isolate per guidance by the Champaign Urbana Public Health District. The quarantine requirements apply to those who travel internationally or are placed into quarantine by public health based on exposure to someone who tested positive. Public Health District is going to be the one that is coordinating all this. And we are working very closely with the Champaign Urbana Public Health District to support their work to manage the contact tracing for all COVID-19 cases in Champaign County that are related to our faculty, staff, or students. We are providing them with the additional resources they will need to have in order for them to be able to stay on top of the growth, if you wish, of our population here in the community as our students are coming back.
And Andres, we've talked a lot about the idea that we're doing that, the testing and the tracing and then making it possible for people to quarantine or isolate. But our testing is kind of unique and cool. It's Illinois based. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yes, it is, as you said, homegrown, saliva-based sample testing that is very quick, is very easy to administer, and the most important thing, the turnaround time when people get informed about the result is within a day. As we grow up to the student population will come back, maybe a little bit longer than that, but it's the fastest that I know of. And that is very important because, as I said, one of the things we want to do with this testing is to make sure that everyone who is tested positive is quickly informed of this so they can, by the Champaign Urbana Public Health District, so they can go into isolation. And of course, for the Public Health District to follow up with others that may have been close to that individual so quickly when we can manage that.
And let's talk a little bit about how difficult it will be for students to actually get tested. Where do they go? How does that work?
Well, we are setting up as many as 20 testing stations located across campus in convenient places where individuals can submit saliva samples. And as I said, we are going to have everyone get tested twice a week. It is mandatory starting on August 16th. And as I mentioned, students are required to get tested as soon as they arrive on campus. Once again, testing off campus will not alleviate the requirement to test on campus. If they tested positive elsewhere before they came here, they would need to share the results with McKinley.
So I know if I'm a student or a parent right now, I'm going to say, okay, what happens when I test positive? So Kevin, can you walk us through a little bit about what happens when a student tests positive and what does that mean for their classes?
Sure. If a student tests positive, the first thing that will happen is that the positive result will be shared with Champaign-Urbana Public Health District, and they will immediately embark on a contact tracing effort to try to identify anyone who came in contact with the individual. They will also be required to isolate. Of course, we want anyone who does have the virus to be isolated away from others. And in doing so, we will make sure that students will be excused from attending classes. The idea there is we don't want students attending class at all this semester if they're not feeling well, or if they've tested positive, or if they've not completed their testing. We want to make sure that the class environment is as safe as possible and that we don't have anyone that is known to be carrying the virus in the classroom. So for many cases, the instructor will, of course, work with the student as an excused absence. And in some cases, the class will be actually may have online content that the student can take advantage of while they're in isolation if they're feeling well. Robin?
Great. And what happens if, not me, but my roommate tests positive? Same kind of drill?
The drill would be very similar, and of course the circumstances may vary depending on what's happening, but through the contact tracing process, it's quite likely that the roommate would be identified as at risk for having contracted the virus, and therefore they would be required to isolate and go through testing. And at the same time, we would again strongly ensure that they don't attend class, absolutely, and that they be excused and are able to make up that any material they either miss or have available to them outside the classroom.
Great, thank you. And Danita, can you talk a little bit about where students will quarantine or isolate when they need to do that?
Absolutely. So if our student lives in our residence halls, our students will isolate or quarantine in the residence halls or at their permanent place or residence. And if a student lives off campus in a private apartment or a private home, they will isolate or quarantine in their apartment or private home or their permanent place of residence. And if neither is feasible, they will have to quarantine and isolate through arrangements made under the supervision and guidance of our Champaign-Urbana Public Health Department.
Great. And can you tell us, I mean, we're not leaving students just to figure all this out on their own. Can you talk a little bit about the wellness support team that Student Affairs is leading, putting in place?
Well, we're very excited as the university is encouraging all of our students to abide by the COVID guidelines in a number of ways and supporting them. And sometimes we may have to enforce some of these guidelines if people do not abide by them. But the university has created a new COVID wellness team, if you will, and that team includes student wellness ambassadors who will be passing out hand sanitizers, reminding people about social distancing and wearing their face coverings. We'll point you to a place if you need to get an additional face covering. We also have a COVID Wellness Answer Center that people can call and get their questions answered regarding any type of situation regarding to COVID. And we also have our wellness support ambassadors who will check for compliance at the entrances of all of our buildings and our classrooms.
And can you explain, what does that mean for McKinley? McKinley not there or there this semester?
McKinley will definitely be open and they will have full services. As you all know, McKinley's tagline is keeping you well to excel. So we will definitely make sure that we have full services for healthcare for our students.
Great, thank you. And everybody's thinking about moving in, getting ready to come back. What do students need to do when they arrive for move-in this year that's different than normal?
Well, we are very excited. We're gearing up for a move-in date of August 16th, and students will need to check in at our centralized move-in location, which is going to be at State Farm Center before they can check into their residence hall room. That is a little different than the past. And at the State Farm Center during this process, they will be able to take their COVID-19 test. They will receive a PPE kit with their face coverings and hand sanitizers, et cetera. They will receive their room key and they will confirm their university ID.
That's great. And can their parents come with them?
Well, the parents can come with them during the move-in time. All of our students can have a maximum of 2 people to help them move in. And there will be parts of that check-in process that will only be for students, i.e. like the testing part, but parents will be allowed to help their students move in and unpack their hall. We are asking that all of our families, when they come and they're assisting, that they unpack as quickly as possible so that we can reduce any type of density, be mindful of social distancing, because we really want to make sure that everyone is safe. But we do have a no guest policy for this fall. So after move in, people who do not live in that hall will not be permitted.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. And Jim, what will welcome days look like this year? A little different, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Robin, this is an exciting time of year for us. All the students coming back and bringing life to campus, but welcome days will look different than that has in the past, but with a combination of in-person and virtual experiences. New student programs and all the campus partners who collaborate on creating welcome days are working on experiences to help students get connected, to campus life in a variety of ways. So students will still be able to connect with their respective colleges, attend convocation, which is kind of our bookend event to commencement, learn school traditions and build their Illini spirit, as well as connect with campus resources, student organization, which we have over 1,000 of, and also local businesses. So for students who cannot attend in person, experiences will have content available online. We are working on the final details of this, and so more specific information will be sent to students next week.
Oh, let's give them. Oh, can you hear me now? I'm so sorry. I'm having trouble with my microphone. Great. So Jim, I want one more quick tip out of you. If somebody is not able to go to convocation, if I say ILL, what do you say back to me?
I, of course.
Thank you. Okay, get that all squared away. All right. Danita, you talked a little bit about iCards earlier. And for people who don't know what that is, could you explain what it is and then explain all of the ways you can get one?
Absolutely. The iCard is the official ID for the University of Illinois, and it is required for proof of identity on campus, and particularly for those living in the residence halls. And so if you don't have your iCard yet, you can get your iCard at the Urbana ID Center, which is in the Illini Union. And for all those students who are living in university housing, you will be able to get a card at our centralized check-in. You can submit your iCard photo online, and we will then mail it to your US address that you provide in advance, which we are encouraging people to do that. But iCards will be mailed until the start of school. But we are encouraging all of our students to submit their photo as soon as possible so that they can receive their card before they arrive on campus.
That's great, thank you. And can you talk a little bit about the new residence halls rules and procedures that are put in place for COVID?
Yeah, so as changes and updates are made, we really want to make sure that people are visiting the housing website because we know that these things do change rapidly. But we have increased our cleaning and sanitizing. We're really making sure that we're following all of the CDC and the Champaign-Urbana Public Health Department and the Illinois health guidelines. We have reduced occupancy throughout our halls, so we are only offering double and single rooms. We have the move-in process that will allow for social distancing. Your face coverings must be worn when you are not in, their students are not in their rooms. The dining options will change as far as takeout and any type of room configurations, bed configurations have been suspended. I know that students really like to kind of personalize their room, but we have made some changes for that. And then also, like I've mentioned earlier, only residents who live in that hall will be permitted in that hall. So no guests from outside of the residence hall will be allowed.
So you said no moving your furniture. Can you tell families how will the furniture be configured?
So in an effort, as we talked about, to really enhance that health and safety of our residents, the configurations will go back to a normal setting. So this will allow for our building service workers, our outstanding building service workers, to prioritize and clean and sanitize public areas such as the bathrooms, lobbies. It eliminates our workers for having to deal with the different bed configurations. And it will also allow for that extra layer of protection so that there's fewer people in those private living spaces. But most importantly, it'll just remain as it is so that we can reduce any chance of injury that a student may have if they have a loft or a bunk bed. And it will also make sure, again, that the social distancing for our residence halls are completed with further social distancing.
So for all the Beverly Cleary fans out there, this is my Ramona the Pest question. How will the bathrooms work? And will there be a limit to how many people can use a bathroom?
Well, we are cleaning as I said, we are cleaning our high-touch services and our bathrooms multiple times a day. So, there's no need to be alarmed that if there's not going to be any type of cleaning and sanitizing. So we do have community and individual bathrooms for use. And so we will make sure that, it is deep cleaned at least once a week, that we are really paying attention to the showers, removing any type of trash and replenishing paper products, soap, etc. on a regular basis. Again, there's no necessary limitation to that, but they will be configured so that we will have social distancing to make sure that we are disinfecting all of the flat surfaces and again, just really deep cleaning those bathrooms.
And can you talk a little bit more about dining? You mentioned it earlier, but can you really drill down? What will that be like?
Yes, it'll be a lot different than what I think our students have expected and really been through in the past. All of the dining locations will be open, including the retail locations as well. We will extend hours of our operation with dinner served until 9 p.m. and retail operations until 11 p.m. And students will receive options for carry out or dine in at a limited capacity. So all of our, all your care to eat meals, all that hot and cold items will be available for carry out in single use containers. So some of the menus might change a little bit than what our students are accustomed to, but they will make sure that we are meeting the occupancy guidelines as set forth by the state, as well as encouraging that social distancing.
But some students will be able to eat together if you get there early, I'm guessing, or at the right time?
If you get there early, our halls will have limited to capacity in their dining hall. So if you want to eat in, I would suggest you get there early because not every location will be used in terms of seating in the dining hall.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you. And Kevin, obviously we'll want similar types of care taken in classrooms. Can you talk a little bit about how the classroom environment will change to keep things as safe as possible?
Yes, Robin, a lot of the ideas that we've already talked about, social distancing, face coverings, will also apply to the classroom. We're really thinking safety first, but also making an environment that's still very conducive to learning. So everyone will sit far apart in the classroom, many fewer students in the room. For example, a lecture hall that normally seats 300 students will now only seat 50. So there'll be room to spread out. We'll have chairs, in many rooms, chairs will either be taped off to note where students should and shouldn't sit, or the furniture will be in very specific locations. So we'll ask folks to, like with the dorms, to leave the modifications as they are. Everyone in the room will wear a mask. That includes the instructor. And showing your testing status will be required prior to entry. That will either happen at the door to the classroom, or it may be the door to the building, depending on what room your class is in. There will be signs to help with traffic flow. Some rooms will have enter and exit, dedicated doors for entry and exit. One of the things I suggest at the beginning of the semester is really to encourage patience, especially as students are kind of figuring out the traffic flow and we're going through for the first few times the process of verification for students into the room. It may take a few minutes to get into the classroom. Be patient and remain distant from other students, and we'll get it all settled out very quickly. As I mentioned, your instructor will also wear a face mask, and that's something we'll have to adapt to. So all of these safety measures really require everyone's cooperation, students and faculty, instructors. But I think we'll get used to it pretty quickly, and we'll be back then to a more normal lifestyle of really the classroom is very conducive to learning, and everybody can get a lot out of their face-to-face instruction. Robin? Great,
thank you. Now, there are a lot of classes, even on campus, that are going to be online. Can you talk a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, just the requirement of social distancing reduces our classroom capacity. So that's one of the challenges. We offer more than 5,000 classes in a normal semester. So finding the space to do that with social distancing becomes a challenge. Of course, also the governor's Restore Illinois plan limits gatherings to 50. So our normal kind of large lecture courses, we just can't operate face to face. So many of those had to move online. In addition, some of our faculty are in high risk categories and they're not able to come to campus to teach in person. So as a consequence, about 2/3 of our courses will be offered online this fall, and about 1/3 will have a face-to-face component. We recognize that students reported challenges with remote learning, as Andreas was talking about earlier in the spring semester. And many of those challenges had to do with being away from campus. We're really sensitive to these issues and want to make sure that the supports are there to help our students, including technology support, study spaces, office hours, tutoring. And so we really feel that students will benefit from the campus experience and being part of the campus community. Because most students will have some online courses, we will have a laptop program for students that are in need of technology. And I think that's something that we will continue to work on to make sure that all students have access to the technology they need to have a good semester. Robin?
Great. And of course, we announced recently that after Thanksgiving, all classes will move to remote instruction. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, our COVID-19 modeling group, which does a fantastic job of trying to identify all of the safety measures we need to put in place to make sure that the campus is a safe place. You know, they tell us that one of the most dangerous things we can do overall is to bring the entire student body back to campus after they've been away. Now, of course, we have to do that in August as we begin the semester. And in response to that, we've developed this very comprehensive testing plan that you heard about from Andreas and Danita to ensure a safe return to campus. But we don't have to do that after Thanksgiving break. There are 8 days of instruction in the academic calendar and 6 days of final exams after Thanksgiving break. So with planning, since we know in advance this semester, we're going to perform those remotely so that we don't bring the entire student body back to campus after Thanksgiving break. The students and their instructors will be able to plan ahead because they know that now. And the final exam schedule will be as it was. The semester's not shortened in any way. Everyone will get the full suite of instruction through the full semester. And we believe that with this knowledge now and the ability to plan ahead, it will be a very seamless transition. And we're convinced that this is the right approach given the circumstances.
Great, thank you, Kevin. And you did mention the modeling that our scientists have done, and we actually will have Professors Nigel Goldenfeld and Sergey Maslov on another program tomorrow at 11:30 to talk about that data modeling. It's pretty amazing. And if you have time, I think it would be a nice way to spend your lunch hour. So please join us again tomorrow for that. But for today, Danita, Kevin also mentioned common spaces. Can you talk a little about those? And I know I'm going to list some that aren't necessarily in your portfolio, like the libraries, but say the ARC, the Illini Union, other places like that. Will they be open and accessible for students?
Yes, so I'll start with the Illini Union. The Illini Union will be open, and furniture in those spaces have been arranged to accommodate social distancing. We have clearly marked spaces for pedestrian traffic so that we can have an adequate flow that will provide for some safety mechanisms for all of our guests in the union. The libraries will be offering an array of virtual experiences and services. They plan to have some study space options open in the early of the fall semester, and we'll look to expand some of those services in other ways. Now, at this time, the ARC will be the only campus recreation fitness facility open. So those who use CERCE, the Campus Recreation Center East, I'm sorry to tell you that it will be closed. And so, because we will be using that facility as a COVID-19 testing location throughout the fall semester. So, but those entities will be open, the ARC, the libraries, and the Illini Union.
Great, thank you. And Kevin, we were talking about accessibility earlier. How is the university making these online courses accessible for students? What are all the different things you're thinking about?
I appreciate that question, Robin, because, you know, accessibility is really a priority for us in any semester, and that certainly continues to be true for this semester. You know, one of the things we did this summer in order to prepare for the fall term was spend a lot of time helping our instructors generate and develop online course content. Almost 2,000 instructors this summer have gone through an online teaching academy to help them better prepare for the fall semester. And I think that will be seen both in the quality of our instruction overall, but it's also will be seen in the accessibility of our courses, whether they're face-to-face, hybrid, or completely online, because that was one of the things that was very important and we very much emphasized in all of the work we were doing over the summer to prepare for this fall term. We've also been working with Disability Resources and Educational Services, which many students know better as DRES, on issues related to accessibility for students. And for students who need accommodations, who have questions or concerns, I highly recommend they contact DRES right away. Robin?
Great, thank you. And Danita, your unit is providing services for students with disabilities too. Can you talk about some of those?
Yes, all of our facilities have been made to provide accessibility for our students who have disabilities, but we work very closely with DRES. So, you know, there's no need to worry about accessibility for students or support with, you know, type of mental health capabilities in housing, dining, what have you. We will be able to provide those services for our students, but definitely we work hand in hand with DRES.
Great, thank you so much. And obviously Illinois is an international, a global university. So Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit about what international students should expect when they come back? Will they need to quarantine when they travel back to campus?
Yes, international students who are arriving for the first time on campus and are returning to us from abroad will need to self-quarantine for 14 days when they arrive. We ask that they follow the guidelines from the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and the CUPD, Champaign Public Health Department as well.
Great. And for international students who cannot come back to campus, how are we making sure that they have an accessible online Illinois education?
Yeah, so we've been working to provide as many online options as possible for our students who cannot return for fall. We're also aware that our international students come to us from many different time zones across the world. So as we can't guarantee that every class section will be asynchronous, we're working to maximize the flexibility for the students who are enrolled in these online classes around the world. The office I work for, International Student and Scholar Services, we have also created online tutorials for our students as well. For work authorization, we are also doing Zoom Q&As every week because we know that there are a lot of questions about maintaining status during this time. So we're trying to get those answered for our students who are here and who are still abroad. And we are still providing our usual services during this time as well.
Great. And I know we've heard in the news a little bit about whether international students can take courses online if they're physically here. Can you talk a little bit about how that all shook out and where it landed?
Sure. So the news has been much better as of late. So our international students who are continuing. So if you're a student who has been with us in spring or summer here at Illinois or online in Illinois in the middle of spring, you are able to take online courses to maintain your status either in the US or abroad in order to maintain status. So that's good news. New international students, so if you plan to come to Illinois, join us in the fall, you must take at least one in-person course once for the fall semester.
Great. And I assume, again, ISSS will help them ensure that they're able to register for that if they get here.
Oh, absolutely. If you have questions, we will answer them for you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. Wojtek, can you kind of walk through what are the things graduate students need to know in addition to all the things we've talked about for all students?
Sure. Thank you, Robin. First and foremost, I would say that all of the protocols and procedures that are designed to protect the health and safety of our community apply equally to all graduate students. So students who come to campus will be required to practice social distancing, to wear face coverings, and to be tested for COVID-19 twice a week, just like everyone else. Similarly, just like undergraduate students, graduate students may be taking classes that are in-person, remote, or a hybrid combination of the two. As Kevin told you, classrooms will be configured to maximize social distancing. You know, it's important to note that half of our master's degree students were already enrolled in 100% online degree programs well before the pandemic ever struck. In fact, Illinois actually has a rich history of excellence in online education, and we've invested a lot of resources over the summer to develop additional online experiences that I'm sure will continue this tradition of excellence. However, in addition to taking classes, many graduate students work closely with their academic advisor on independent study or thesis and dissertation research projects. Students should consult with their academic advisor or their department to determine the format of these meetings. Finally, many graduate students come to our campus along with their families. Students living with children and families in university apartments should reach out to the university housing website. They have a lot of very useful additional advice and assistance about COVID-19 policies and procedures during the pandemic. Back to you,
Thank you. Oh, thank you. And can you talk a little bit specifically about the protocols for TAs and teaching assistants and research labs?
Sure. You know, as you know, graduate assistants play a critically important role in our university. Many graduate students serve as teaching assistants, research assistants, or sometimes perform other administrative duties. During the pandemic, many graduate assistant duties will be performed remotely. However, there may also be opportunities for students to participate in on-campus activities, provided this can be done safely following campus guidelines. Graduate students should contact their academic department or assistantship supervisor to discuss the specific options available to them. Teaching assistants in particular should refer to the COVID-19 classroom management guide for additional information. You know, many graduate students are also members of research labs, studios, or other study groups. Each of these is required to develop and implement a health and safety plan that follows campus, public health, and CDC guidelines. Some graduate students have already returned to do research on campus following these guidelines, and we appreciate their work, especially those who've been working on important projects addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. Graduate students working in labs or other spaces on campus will be required to meet both the general campus guidelines as well as the specific requirements established for each particular lab or study group. Students should reach out to their academic advisor or to their department to determine the specific protocols they should follow. You know, graduate students with additional questions should absolutely reach out to the graduate college. You can take a look at our COVID-19 website, reach out to us through email, or contact your department and faculty advisor for assistance.
Great. Those are wonderful options. Thank you, Wojtek. And of course, it's Big Ten school. We like our fall sporting events. Danita, we had Josh Whitman on recently. They still had not determined whether we will have any outdoor sporting events this fall. Assuming we do, say have football, what are we doing to make sure students are safe if they want to go and cheer on the Illini?
Well, actually, I'm going to defer that question to Jim Hitz.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are asking this question. A lot of people know us for our sports and our amazing student athletes, and we all hope we'll be able to be there supporting them this fall. However, at this time, many of the fall sporting events are still being determined. The Division of Intercollegiate Athletics is creating social distancing plans and determining attendance numbers for each of the NCAA sporting events and venues that abides by the state of Illinois medical guidelines. So kind of stay tuned and hopefully we'll be there cheering them on.
Great, sounds good. What about registered student organizations, Jim? I know they do some outdoor things, some indoor. How will all of that work?
Yeah, Registered organizations, as you know, Robin, play an important role in the vibrancy of our campus life. We have over 1,000 of them that, so, if you're looking for something to do or something to be a part of or a way to be engaged, there's something for everyone. RSOs will be able to host meetings, programs, and events, both virtually and in person, both indoors and outdoors, as long as they're following the university event guidance that's been distributed. The Student Engagement Office and facility managers of the different venues will work with the student organization leaders to develop safety plans for all their in-person events that include a limitation of no more than 50 attendees and a requirement for face coverings and social distancing. So more to come on that.
Great. And I'm not sure if this one's for you or for Danita, Jim, but I know Krannert Center announced earlier this week that they will not be able to have any fall performances. They're using a lot of their spaces for classes and that sort of thing. And of course, with the 50-person limit, it's really not super feasible anyway. Will there be concerts and performances at State Farm Center and places like that?
Yeah, that's something that we're still looking into. Those large scale indoor events are something that a lot of people look forward to on campus. But at this time, we're again looking at all the state of Illinois guidance on that. But once the prohibition on gatherings of 50 is lifted, we'll certainly be looking at plans and how we'll be able to have those kinds of activities on campus going forward.
Great. And Andreas, can you talk a little bit more about Krannert specifically, since we don't have someone from there here today?
Sure, Robin. Well, as you said, Krannert Center for the Performing Arts has decided to cancel their fall season for good reasons. That limit of 50 people gathering in one room, of course, makes attendance of audiences very difficult. And of course, we have groups traveling to Krannert from all over the world. And of course, that travel to the community here and having a performance is very complicated. But I want to say that the Krannert Center for the Performing Arts is also a center for learning and teaching. And from day one throughout the summer, the Krannert Center for the Performing Arts has been working diligently with our College of Fine and Applied Arts to make sure that lots of the training and learning and experiences that our artists receive are able to be offered in the facilities in the center.
Yeah, Andreas, I have to say one thing that really brought a lot of joy to me this summer was when they did the big virtual sing. It was just really lovely to see that you can still have a piece of Krannert even if we can't physically be together. So I love their creativity.
So important.
Absolutely. Jim, another thing that's obviously important to a lot of people on our campus is the fraternity and sorority Greek system. Can you tell us a little bit about how that'll work this year?
Yeah, absolutely, Robin. As you know, we have one of the largest fraternity and sorority communities in the country, so many of our students are involved in one way or another with the community. Many of them have houses, but not all the organizations do. For those that do have houses, they are owned and operated independent of the university, but Fraternity and Sorority Affairs Office and the University Housing Office have been sharing information and resources to assist the organizations in determining how to manage their houses with COVID health and safety guidance in mind. Fraternities and sororities are expected to follow the same requirements as all registered organizations, so they will be able to still host programs and social events as long as they abide by the limitations of no more than 50 face coverings, social distancings, et cetera. Something else that's pretty visible on campus in the fall is the Panhellenic recruitment that normally happens. The Panhellenic Council formal recruitment has been decided to be entirely virtual process this year, with other kind of smaller recruitment activities will follow the university and state guidance.
See, they will need to work with Krannert so they can virtually sing to their visitors. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Danita, can you talk a little bit about a question we've gotten from lots of people? How do we monitor and control private parties and gatherings?
Well, we are definitely not naive to think that parties and private gatherings will occur because that's part of college life and it's part of life in general, the socialization aspect. However, we are strongly encouraging all of our students to be mindful of those expectations and those requirements of the face coverings, the social distancing when they are gathering. However, If there are excessive gatherings or large gatherings, or if we find that there has been a complaint that has been filed, we will handle it accordingly. So it's not that we're going to be driving around the streets of campus looking for parties and gatherings that are exceeding the limitations, but we are working with our landlords, our home and apartment owners on enforcement approaches and expectations that they have in their private residence, as well as we are working with the bar owners as well, if they decide that they're going to host these type of parties in private gatherings.
Yeah, I guess if you could talk just for a minute about the whole, with the work with the bars. I know you guys have all worked really closely with the cities and CU Public Health and the local business owners. That's been really heartening to me, and I've not heard about that in other communities being quite as successful or collaborative.
Well, yes, our bar owners want to keep not only our students and our community safe, but they have their own employees and their families that they want to keep safe. So they are working hard with all of our city officials, the university officials, to make sure that they are following the state and the city laws, and that we are working together to remind students of those mandatory expectations in social distancing, face coverings, and they will be strictly enforcing those guidelines as we move forward.
Andres, would you like to add anything about that? I know you've worked really closely with lots of other agencies locally.
Yes, I have been very impressed with the level of collaboration we have been receiving from our mayor's offices and everyone who cares about this community. We realize all that at the end of the day, each and every one of us need to do our part to make sure that we deal with this complicated crisis we have found ourselves in the best possible way. I know everybody loves our students in this community, and our students love the community. And I do count on that as we think ahead of how best to serve everybody. But I have been really humbled by the interest and commitment by everyone in the community to work with us as best as possible to anticipate and as best as we can deal with the challenges that COVID-19 presents us with.
Yeah, I would have to say the theme of all, having been involved in all of these briefings we've done so far, the themes I have seen recur are really patience and kindness. And it seems like that's really what you've based a lot of your work on as you all have done this. So I don't know, Andres, do you want to say anything about that? Or?
Well, patience in uncertainty is very difficult. Well, I think we're doing our best. Uncertainty is very difficult for people to deal with. And everyone being patient, being kind, being understanding, being receptive to criticism, but at the same time willing to deal with that, I think it has helped us very much.
Absolutely, I agree. And Danita, for the parents who are watching today, what can they do if they have questions about their student? They want to kind of stay in contact, but they don't want to helicopter too much.
Well, there are a number of entities on campus that are here to support our students, particularly our Parent and Family Programs Office, the Office of the Dean of Students, various offices within Student Affairs. But there's also what we call is the Illini Alert, which is managed by our University of Illinois Police Department, which will allow for incidents, particularly those of imminent threat to life or health or safety, to provide those type of messages for information, emergency information, instructions on how to take protective actions. But our parents and families, we want you to know that you are not alone, and you can reach out to us and we can best answer your questions as they come in.
And Danita, I know my office gets a lot of calls from parents if they're not sure where to call. I know your office must get 10 times what we do. Can you help parents understand what are some of the things we cannot tell them?
Yes, absolutely. So we cannot disclose information about a student's educational record. So such as their grades or class schedule, or even their medical information. We cannot disclose non-directory type information, if you will.
Great, thank you very much. And I think we've actually made it through our list and we did it all in an hour. You guys are amazing. It shows everybody how on point you always are. You are very strategic and direct and to the point, and I really appreciate that now more than ever. Andres, would you like to say a few words to help us close today?
Yes, Robin, I would like first of all to thank all of my colleagues for participating in this conversation, and thank particularly the students and the parents who are listening to us. As you can tell, we're trying to come up with as many answers to the many questions as possible. Robin mentioned the word patience. We want to be patient with all of this. I know that it's very difficult to not have all the answers, but I will tell you that we have been working diligently to anticipate all the questions, deal with all the issues that we know. I have spent many hours on a weekly basis with my other provosts around the Big Ten, but also other universities around the country, sharing questions, trying to learn from one another, trying to anticipate given the uncertainty again, all the things that we need to anticipate as we navigate our way through this pandemic. I would tell you that one of the things you need to keep in mind is that everything we do needs to be compliant with what the state of Illinois tells us to do. And so don't be surprised if we come back to you and say, well, now we have to do something else. Be patient and be understanding as we try to make sure that whatever it is possible for us to do, dealing with that uncertainty and looking after the well-being of your students, we do. I want you to remember our number one priority is for the students, no matter whether they're here on campus, no matter whether they're online, to have an amazing learning experience. And that is our number one priority. And that is the thing we can promise you will do our best to make sure it happens. So thank you all very much. And Robin, back to you.
Thank you, Andreas. Again, thanks to Andreas Kangalaris, Danita Brown-Young, Wojtek Hodgko-Zyko, Stephanie Dvorak, Jim Hintz, and Kevin Pitts. Also want to thank August Schess, Allison Vance, Chris Harris, Brian Mertz, Katie Watson, and Leah Peck from Public Affairs. Also Brian Boyle from Tech Services. And I want to remind you again, next briefing is tomorrow, Thursday, August 6th at 11:30 a.m. We will be talking with Professors Nigel Goldenfeld and Sergey Maslov about their COVID data modeling efforts. We'll also have Julie Pride and Awais Vaid from CU Public Health District. We've talked to you about them and how much they have been involved in helping us find the right direction. And so they'll be joining that conversation as well. You can find that on the same link that you're using today. Again, today's briefing, tomorrow's briefing, all the ones we've had, all are closed captioned and then posted on that same site. You can go to covid19.illinois.edu and see all of those, as well as answers to any other questions you might have. And if you can't find an answer to your question, there is an email address there, covid19@illinois.edu. You can write us a note and we will respond to you just as quickly as possible. So thank you so much for your interest. Thank you for trusting your children to us if you're parents watching. Thank you for choosing Illinois. If you are students, we can't wait to see you. We look forward to that, but from a little bit of a distance and with our face coverings. So we will see you soon. Have a great day today, and I hope you can join us again tomorrow. Bye-bye.